everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1999 project. We have entered the month of March in this project and entered the month of March in real life in 2024. So, with that, let's talk about a couple movies, one of which I actually was very pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed as much, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's kick things off with Analyze This.
Hey, I wasn't really gonna whack it.
Oh, all right, maybe I was gonna whack it, but I was real conflicted about it.
Analyze This.
Analyze This was directed by Harold Ramis of Ghostbusters fame, among many other comedies of the late 80s and early 90s, and the movie starred Robert De Niro, Billy Crystal, and Chaz Palminteri, among others. It tells the story of a gangster played by De Niro, who is basically La Costa Nostra, or at least he's a pretty big deal in the gangster world. But he has feelings as well, and so he decides he needs to get some therapy. Enter Billy Crystal playing his therapist, whether he likes it or not. Legit, about 20 minutes into this movie, I was sitting there and thinking to myself, okay, in the year 1999, there was not one but two pieces of media, both involving gangsters who have trouble in their personal and professional lives, and they need to go to therapy. Analyze This and The Sopranos. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I actually did a little bit of a dive into seeing which one came first, and there is no like true consensus. The closest answer I could find was on the Reddit thread "Are Sopranos?" The question was posed there and said that since The Sopranos was probably done and completed, or well, season one of Sopranos was shot, edited, and complete and ready to go by the end of 98, it seemed like more of a coincidence, which if that is the case, then that's fine. But yeah, it's a strange coincidence if you really think about it, because The Sopranos is a serious crime drama, and Analyze This is a goofy comedy, all involving the mob and just, I don't know, it's a scary coincidence, I guess. Harold Ramis, may he rest in peace, was a very talented writer and director. Robert De Niro, I mean, we all know who he is, and Billy Crystal is a very very funny comedic actor in his own right. This should have been a home run. Instead, it was more of a base hit. Not amazing, but it was fun. This movie basically has one joke. The head of this big old gangster family needs to get therapy, and that pretty much is the beginning and the end of the jokes in this movie. But because of the heavyweights involved in the acting department, they give it socks and they give the material some weight here. It's just focused on De Niro and Crystal. It's pretty good. But when they divert into other things, like, say, Billy Crystal's character's father being a more successful psychiatrist than he is, including book deals, and his character's son not being a big fan of him and just being like trying to ruin his upcoming marriage, not like that really needed any help. And just, I don't know, it just came across as unnecessary window dressing. Maybe do something different, like say Billy Crystal's character is not necessarily enthused with being a psychiatrist, but finds that De Niro to be a pretty meaty character, like in his own right, and enough to probe and say, "How are you feeling right now?" Like reignites his passion for psychiatry. But no, that doesn't really happen. The funniest part of the movie happens near the bitter end when all of the gangsters meet in this one big meeting for the first time since the 50s. And De Niro is kind of inconsolable and can't go. And so basically Billy Crystal has to play him or his advisor of sorts. And basically the very Jewish man of Billy Crystal trying to be Italian just made me laugh. Like, I can't put my finger on why, but it just did.
Representing Mr. Paul Vitti as his consigliere.
At the end of the day, I am going to give this a good rating. It is funny at parts, but the whole gangster has to go to therapy thing is pretty much the only bullet in the chamber here. and it gets a little old. It's not bad, but it's not particularly great either. It's enjoyable for what it is. But the movie I did not expect to love as much turned out to be my favorite of the three I'm going to be talking about. It's Cruel Intentions.
Quite the predicament you're in.
Cruel Intentions.
Cruel Intentions was directed by Roger Kumble, and it starred Ryan Phillippe, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Selma Blair, among others. It tells the story of a brother and sister played by Ryan Phillippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar, respectively. They like each other a lot, and they pretty much see themselves as intellectual equals, but look down on virtually everyone else. And so they play these little wagers with each other. And their next mark comes in the form of a girl who has pledged to keep her virginity up until marriage. She's played by Reese Witherspoon. And Gellar challenges Phillippe to, well, take away Witherspoon's virginity. There have been similar plots to this that I've covered in other movies in the past that I have not really been fans of. So why did I like this so much? Well, a couple reasons really. Number one, the ending, which I will get to in a minute. And number two, I like the story at play here. Let's make it clear. Phillippe and Michelle Gellar's characters are both not great people. You don't want to aspire to be them. But what I love about this is that Phillippe's character actually shows growth. He starts out in one place, and slowly over the course of time, he becomes more tolerable. And as his heart kind of grows bigger, he becomes a better person as a whole. There's an evolution, there's an arc there. And I liked that. I liked the spirit of that. Sarah Michelle Gellar's character is pure evil. And the movie does a good job of leaning into that, not being like, oh, she's misunderstood. No, she is evil, full stop. And I appreciated the portrayal there. Selma Blair was good in her role. Her mom in the movie is played by Christine Baranski, which was random, but it was nice to see her. And then there's Reese Witherspoon, who does do a good job in her role, but she would make a much bigger impact a year later with American Psycho. My favorite part of the movie was the ending. After all of this has gone down, there's a big old reveal that happens, and I won't spoil it, but it was a very satisfying reveal, and it's all soundtrack to the awesome song by The Verve, Bittersweet Symphony. Like, if you've heard that song, like, it's a beautiful song, and it ties in beautifully with the ending. I'm going to give this movie a great rating. Yeah, I know I'm going high on this one, but I liked the movie more than I was expecting, and I said in my tease at the end of last week's episode that I was not looking forward to this movie, and this was the very definition of a pleasant surprise. Considering the material involved, I would say it's not for everyone, but I do give it a recommendation. But let's close things out this week by taking a look at the directorial debut of a filmmaker who is still going strong to this day, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
A shitload of cash.
The one's responsible for this torture.
And a traffic order.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels was directed by Guy Ritchie, and it starred Sting, no, not the wrestler, but happy retirement to use Sting, Jason Statham, and Vinnie Jones, among others. And like I said, this is the directorial debut of one Guy Ritchie, who is still going to this very day, releasing just about a movie a year. Like, his next movie is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, called The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. It looks like a lot of fun. And this is another case where it was released in England in the summer of '98, but didn't get distribution until March of '99 here in the States. And the States calendar is what I'm going by. It tells the story of a group of friends who get up to their eyeballs in debt after a card game gone horribly wrong. The main cast is Tom, played by Jason Fleming, Soap, that is his name, played by Dexter Fletcher, the eventual director of movies like Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic, and Bacon, played by Jason Statham. Yes, his character's name is Bacon, because England. They need to pay back $500,000 to a loan shark, or else the family bar will be taken as collateral, and that cannot happen. I consider myself a fan of Guy Ritchie's work. He has had some downs, especially in the 2010s, though King Arthur is like the one movie of his that everybody seems to hate except for me, but I do recognize it's a mess. Whether it's that one weird movie he did with Madonna or the Aladdin movie, Guy Ritchie has had his fair share of flops. But I love his two Sherlock Holmes movies, and The Gentleman was my second favorite movie of 2020 behind The Way Back. So I'm a bit of a fan of Guy Ritchie. And this one, I wouldn't say is my overall favorite of his work, but I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I think kind of similar to say something like Bad Boys from Michael Bay, you get the sense that Guy Ritchie found his style of directing and just never strayed from it. Well, at least until say like Aladdin and other things. The very first scene of this movie pretty much encapsulates the Guy Ritchie directing model, if you will. It's a bunch of English dudes selling illegal material, talking a mile a minute, saying a lot of naughty words and a lot of British words that are probably naughty words, but us dumb Americans don't know what they mean. The cops find them, chase them down, and the sequence ends with a slow-mo action sequence. That's Guy Ritchie in a nutshell, and that is the first scene of this movie. And again, I'm not trying to knock the guy. What I'm trying to get at with that is saying that Guy Ritchie understood what he wanted from this movie, and that's the strength of the movie. He makes it his very own. He has his sensibilities in there. His characters pretty much talk like Guy Ritchie characters. This is, for lack of a better word, the Guy Ritchie Rosetta Stone. Jason Statham is my favorite part of this movie. Like, he is so much fun here. Not only is his character named Bacon, but there's this weird perception that like he started with the transporter and is like that's all the stuff that he ever did. But when he goes off track with something like a Lock, Stock or like a Spy, he's actually rather good. And this is one of his better roles. My one kind of knock against the movie is that the movie does feel a little rough, especially in the coloring department. Like, why does every shot look like in sepia tone? Like, I don't understand what the choice was here. If it was the tech that Guy Ritchie had at the time, then fair enough, tech, limits do happen. Also, the narrative is very loose at best. It feels like a collection of just Guy Ritchie getting some charismatic people in a room and saying, just hash it out. We'll figure it out from there. And not necessarily anything wrong with that, but the real movie doesn't really start up until like 20-25 minutes in. And during that time, I'm just like, what's this movie about again? But I am going to give this a high good rating. I did enjoy this movie on the whole, and it definitely shows that while this one was not Guy Ritchie's best work, his best was yet to come. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of any of the movies I've talked about? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. And next week might potentially be a pretty rough one because we're kicking things off next week for the 1999 project with the original Baby Geniuses. Your sympathies are greatly appreciated, as well as a revisit of The Rage Carrie 2. But if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe, comment, all of that. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.